What did you like better, Jedi or The Empire Strikes Back?
Empire.
Blasphemy.
Empire had the better ending. I mean, Luke gets his hand cut off, finds out Vader's his father, hand gets frozen, taken away by Boba Fett. It ends on such a down note. I mean, that's what life is, a series of down endings. All Jedi had was a bunch of Muppets.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Geek-Minded Fools. My name's Graham.
And I'm Scott.
Episode 25, mate.
Episode 25?
Quarter of a century.
Wow. It seems like only yesterday we were 21. Does that? So what's 25? Do you get the key in the door for 21? What's 25? It's realisation that not all STDs can be cured.
Yeah, and that we're all going to die one day.
Yeah. Well, every single day we die a little. I said that. I actually said that to my current girlfriend. I realise that every day we die a little. She's like, that's nice, darling.
Every day you kill me a little bit more.
Yeah, she does. She kills me with her beauty.
Ah,
because I love her. I love her dearly.
God
there you
love
go.
you.
Oh, how gay of me.
Yes. Right, moving swiftly on from that, we shall begin, as usual, with a visit to Scott in his monkey farm.
Hey, partners, it's time to see what Scott's doing down on his monkey farm.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome indeed.
While I think about it, do people actually know why this is called the monkey farm? Did we ever say why it's the monkey farm?
I don't know, but I'll tell them.
Go on.
All right. Well, this is the reason I dubbed this the monkey farm is because of the fabulous actor Joseph Pilato, who plays Colonel Rhodes in Day of the Dead.
Yes.
Who delivers the fantastic line, "I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with this with my time." So yeah, it's a very throwaway moment in an amazing movie from 1985.
You actually suggested it as a name for the podcast.
I did indeed. Yes. I did indeed. And as always, welcome to the monkey farm.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, indeed. And hands to yourself. Last week you had the straitjacket. I've allowed you in without it, and you just can't keep your hands to yourself, can you?
I'm sorry.
Just stop touching things, all right? Just stop. You can't help yourself, can you?
Oh, you're such a plum.
Right, leave it now. Leave it. Right, so we've got a bit of news, as always, in the monkey farm. A bit of news.
Newstastic.
I've got some Fear the Walking Dead news. I've got some Fant Four-Stick news.
Yay!
I've got some strange news.
Oh.
So let's start at the top with Fear the Walking Dead, which some of our other listeners may remember I didn't exactly give a shining review of.
No. Neither of us did, really, did we?
No, not really. But very, very tellingly, Episode 2 dropped 2 million viewers.
It did.
That's quite a lot of people to switch off, isn't it?
That's a big drop. I mean, you obviously always expect a drop-off from because people will just watch it for the sake of watching it because it's new. And only the hardcore will come back. What remains to be seen is whether they can now start to build that number back up to proper Walking Dead levels, or if that fall off is a permanent thing based on the fact that people are a bit meh.
Yeah.
So,
and it's amusing to me because I thought the second episode was a lot stronger.
And I would say 3 equally so as well. I would say 3's as good as 2. So,
I've not actually seen the third episode yet, I must admit, but as I've said to you, I am going to carry on watching it because if I don't watch it, I can't slag it off when I know it's when it ends up being crap.
It isn't crap. It was just disappointing because I wanted Night of the Living Dead. And what I got was Beverly Hills 9021 Zombie. It was too much of the family and characters that I didn't care about, but I feel now it's starting to find its feet. And 3 had a proper good bit of gore in it as well that you'll enjoy.
Okay,
so,
well I shall make sure I watch that forthwith. But yeah, as I say, really quite a large amount to drop from 10 million viewers to 8 million viewers. It's they need to up their game massively. Mahusively, sir. Yes. Mahusively. Let's go past that now because I don't want to dwell. Simon Kinberg. He is a producer of films. He is. Do you know what Simon Kinberg produced?
I do because I know the name.
He's got one of them names, hasn't
Yes.
he? Simon Kinberg has been a producer on many films. You know, X-Men, Days of Future Past.
Wasn't it Fantastic Four?
Elysium, Fant4stick,
There you go,
indeed.
of course,
Yes,
right,
I knew we'd get there in the end.
Fant4stick, yes.
I mean, it's a shame, really, because he has produced some damn good stuff. I mean, Chappie...
Snuff?
No, some stuff. Some damn good stuff, not some damn good snuff. But although I'd take some damn good snuff any day over fucking Fant4stick. I hate it that much. I'm not even going to give it its proper name. But yeah, he's just recently done a bit of an interview regarding the future of this new franchise.
It has a future.
Well, I don't think it has, no. But he's kind of waxed lyrical a little bit about the possibility of a sequel. He's saying he is focused.
Man's an idiot.
I know, he's quite clearly a fucking moron, isn't he?
Did he not actually watch the film?
Well, much like, as you've pointed out to me, Kate Mara didn't watch the film, did she? She decided that after the review, she thought, do you know what, I'm just not going to watch that.
Sue Storm herself decided the reviews were so shit, she didn't want to watch her own film.
I'd be interested to find out how many actors, stroke actresses in the business have actually done that. Have actually been so disheartened by reviews that they've gone, do you know what, I'm not watching that pile of fucking shit, even if they're in it. You know, that's how terrible is that, to just go, fuck that.
Absolutely.
That's like cooking someone a meal, isn't it? And going, I'm not having any because I know it's shit.
Exactly.
Which is quite often what happens when I cook. Although I do have to force myself to eat it. But yeah, he's basically saying he's focused on a sequel, and he would love for the new cast, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan, Miles Teller, and Jamie Bell to return. But they're figuring out how that movie would play out. To me, I would imagine that none of them are going to come back.
Why would they?
There is no reason, is there? There's no reason for them to come back after the absolute balls up that they made of it. The biggest flaw, I think, as we discussed in our review of it, was that there was no feeling of family and no feeling of heart
Absolutely.
to the group. And that's what
which is the core of the Fantastic Four.
I mean, for a group of heroes who are kind of renowned as the first family of comic book superheroes, there was no feeling of that. I've got a bit of advice for you, Simon Kinberg. I mean, I've looked at your resume. It's very good. You've done some great stuff. Maybe just scratch this one now.
Yeah.
Just leave well alone. It's not really worth it.
Walk away.
I'd love to talk to you about the news that there's going to be a remake of Mary Poppins as well.
There is.
But I'm fucking not going to.
No. Why would we?
Because why? Really? Why would you remake Mary Poppins?
But this is
who are you going to find that is going to go that extra mile and be the Dick Van Dyke character? No one's going to beat that.
Don Cheadle, surely, with his
Ocean's
Ocean's 11
Yeah, his Basher accent. Is it Basher? Is that the character he's going to say
remember.
like that? God blimey, Governor, I've only gone and made a bomb. Hello, Mary Poppins. Let's go and rob a bank. Yeah, absolutely fucking...
But of course, the current trend is to remake all the classics, so they're just working their way around to everything, aren't they?
Yeah,
So,
pretty
appalling.
much. Pretty much. I mean, we've even got another kind of Rocky franchise in the making, haven't we? With Creed,
yes.
which is, again, it's Michael B. Jordan, isn't it? Who was in Fant4stick. I mean, that might be good. I don't know.
I've heard good things about it. But...
Yeah, the trailer doesn't look too bad. I mean, it can't be any worse than the previous Rocky movie. But finally,
Yes.
Rachel McAdams, who I do very much like.
I know her. Very beautiful.
She's a very pretty lady.
Yes.
She's a very, very pretty lady. I'd like to kiss her on the hand, Graham. I'd like to kiss her on the hand, and then, What, am I boring you? Stop fiddling!
It was there.
Stop fiddling.
It was there.
Okay. She Rachel McAdams has been cast. BB-8! BB-8! Rachel McAdams has been cast in Doctor Strange as the female lead. Now, whether or not she's going to be a villainous female lead or a heroic female lead, we don't know. But, I mean, that can only spell good news for what already looks set to be quite a good movie.
Yes.
With Benedict Cumberbatch
Yes.
in the lead role as Doctor Strange. And if anyone's got any other ideas of false names that we can give Benedict Cumberbatch, please do put them on the Facebook page, because we've seen some corkers of late.
Bumblebee Crimble Snitch or something.
Bumblebee Crimble Snitch, I like that. And what was the cabbage one? It was the
Cabbage Wank.
yeah. Slut Bunwala Cabbage Wank. We like that a lot. So yeah, Rachel McAdams cast as the female lead in Doctor Strange, which I love. I think she's going to be very, very welcome in whatever role she plays. The only other thing I've got really to mention is we've got a couple of villains who have been cast for Wonder Woman.
Oh.
But I'm not sure how the Wonder Woman movie is going to go because it looks like it might be set in the 40s.
Oh, no.
I know, which kind of brings me round to one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you briefly. I know we've touched upon over the phone together, which was your habit of phoning me and heavy breathing.
Yes. Old habits, my
You're
friend,
in
old
your
habits.
40s.
Yes.
You're not living in the 1940s. No, Agent Carter.
Agent Carter.
Now,
yes.
you've seen episode 1 or
1 and 2.
1 and 2, and I've watched none of them. And do you know why? Because it's set in the 40s. I don't care.
Yeah, I'll be honest. They had a little... One of the extras on one of the Avengers Blu-rays, I can't remember which one, was a little 5-minute Agent Carter story whereby she's working in an office with all these guys who it's the 40s and they're all sexist and they all look down on her, and this is obviously set after the first Captain America film, and they all go to the pub and leave her behind, and the red light phone rings, which is obviously a massive mission, and she picks it up and takes the mission, which is to go and take these guys down in this warehouse, which she then goes off and does. And when she comes back, I think it's Howard Stark rings the office, and the manager picks it up and says, "It's Howard Stark, you're in trouble now," or something, and gives the phone to her, and he says, "This is Howard Stark, I'd like you to come and help me set up S.H.I.E.L.D." And it was a nice little thing, and I thought, oh yeah, so that did bode well for the Agent Carter series. And I have to say, I got 2 episodes in and just thought, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm not enjoying it.
Because the whole show's run now, right? Yeah, it's whole season's done, isn't it? How many episodes were in the season?
8 episodes. And it has been renewed for a second season, but I just felt, there's immediate limitations setting it in the past, all the various costumes and what have you. I felt, and the lack of technology didn't help it. But one thing that just grated in the end was, yes, I know it's set in the 40s, I know it's different times, I know that women weren't treated as equals back then in the way they are now, and I know that Peggy Carter is this very strong, independent woman who very much flies in the face of that. But you don't need to ram it down our throats every 10 minutes.
No.
It just wore very thin, and I'll admit I gave it 2 episodes and then walked.
I think the only way
but that's 2 more episodes than you gave.
Yeah, well, indeed, yeah. I mean, the only way I think I could possibly watch it is if the theme tune was "Who do you think you are kidding, Agent Carter?" Then I might watch it, but it's still doubtful.
Yes.
But I digress. The 2 villains have been cast for Wonder Woman, being played by Sean Bean and Eva Green. So we've got Ares, the god of war,
Bean and Green, and
Circe or Cirque, the sorceress. Is it Circe? Yeah. So there you go. There's a little bit more casting news. That's about it really this week for the Monkey Farm, sir. So how's yourself? Out the door. Can't fucking help yourself, can you?
It's a lightsaber, Scott.
You break it, you buy it.
You pay for it.
Yeah. Get out.
Lovely. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
And now we shall move on to this week's Quick Hits.
Quick Hits.
And we shall begin with me.
We shall.
And I am going for one of my all-time favourites this week.
What are your all-time favourites, mate?
Yeah, not half, mate.
Oh.
It's my favourite Spider-Man story of all time.
Yeah.
And it's one that's long been on my list of quick hits to do, and I finally thought, you know what, now's the time. And
Spider-Ham? Is it Spider-Ham?
Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. No, he's fucking not.
I think I've got that. I have.
Why does that not surprise me? It is a story from 1987, written by one of my favourite all-time writers, J.M. DeMatteis, John Mark to his friends, and with art by Mike Zeck, and it is Craven's Last Hunt.
Oh.
And this ran over 6 issues, 6-part story. It ran over all 3 Spider-Man titles that were being published back then. So you got Amazing Spider-Man issue 293 and 294, Web of Spider-Man 31 and 32, and Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man 131 and 132. And it focuses on the fact that Kraven the Hunter, who's always been a bit of a B-list Spider-Man villain, suddenly grows a pair of balls and kills Spider-Man. The first issue ends with Peter fighting Kraven and just thinking, this is a run-of-the-mill fight. All of a sudden, I think Kraven hits him with a dart of some kind, throws a net over him, and sort of Peter's thinking, okay, how am I going to get out of this? And all of a sudden, Kraven just pulls out his shotgun and points it at Peter, and suddenly Peter's going, oh my god, hang on, no, this isn't right, this isn't him, this is to... And bang.
Takes him the fuck out.
And he shoots, and then it ends with Craven walking away, having dug a grave that says, "Here lies Spider-Man, slain by Craven the Hunter."
I very much know that piece of artwork.
Yes,
it's a lovely piece of artwork.
Spidey is in the ground. And funny enough, this is a story that J.M. DeMatteis had touted round quite a few publishers. He originally wrote it as a Wonder Man story, where Wonder Man will be killed by his wayward brother and put in the ground, and Marvel turned it down. He then went to DC and touted it as a Batman story where the Joker would kill Batman and put him in the ground, but DC turned it down. And eventually he suggested it as a Spider-Man story. It was initially only supposed to be a 6-parter in Spectacular Spider-Man, but the editor-in-chief of the time thought, if we're going to do a story that has as much clout as this, where in the first issue Spider-Man is killed, you can't have an issue where Spider-Man is killed but he's still out there fighting crime in the other 2 titles. So we thought, right, for 2 months we're going to give it to all 3 titles. It was a 6-parter over 2 months. And the reason that Craven the Hunter has done this is he's so fed up with being beaten down by Spider-Man that what he wants to do is prove to himself that he will be a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man was.
Right.
And so, having killed Peter and put him in the ground, he dons the black costume, which is what Peter was in then, and becomes Spider-Man and goes around fighting crime, but fighting crime in a lot more of a violent way.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a fantastic scene where Mary Jane's about to get mugged, and she stands there and all of a sudden she sees Spider-Man jump down behind him and thinks, right, you're ready for this, and then watches Spider-Man beat the living crap out of these muggers and just goes, oh my god, that isn't Peter, and isn't sure what's going on. They also have another Spider-Man villain called Vermin, who's involved quite heavily in the story, but I mean, it is recognised as one of the greatest Spider-Man stories of all time, but as with most things, I think my love for it isn't just because of what it is, it's what it represents to me. And what it represents to me is my first ever comic convention that I went to. Now,
dressed as Craven?
No, funny enough. I was Scarlet Witch back then.
Yeah. Well, you've got legs for it.
Indeed.
Your legs like a fucking table.
Yes, the comic convention that used to take part in London every year was called UCAC.
UCAC!
Which I always thought was a terrible name for obvious reasons, which stood for the United Kingdom Comic and Art Convention. Yeah. First one I ever went to was 1987. I went with a friend of mine called Paul, who was a friend from school, and he and I were both very much into comics, and particularly Spider-Man comics, but we both used to pick them up at newsagents, as people used to do back then. So, of course, we were always about 3 months behind the States. And so we went to this convention. I remember walking in and just being blown away. And it was, you had like a mezzanine, and then you go down into the main sort of area, which was sort of where all the dealers were. And we walked out. I remember walking up to a table and seeing all these 6 issues laid out. And bearing in mind, this is 6 issues that we hadn't seen, and we were about 2 issues behind this. And we literally just went in, and we'd driven up to London. I mean, why we drove up to London, God only knows, but it was because we were staying the night. We ended up sleeping in his car in some dirty back alley somewhere. But anyway, we went to a convention, so much to see, so much to do, you know, comic creators, panels, God knows what else. We walked in, we bought these 6 issues, we walked back out. We didn't even sit down in the convention, we walked back out, went back to his car, and both sat in the front of his car, got these 6 issues out, and I can remember just reading them, and literally we were reading them page for page together, because I remember it suddenly, you know, me finishing an issue and realising he was doing the same exactly the same time. We read all 6 and just sat there for about a minute in stunned silence and just turned and looked at each other and realised that we had just witnessed something pretty fucking incredible in the mythos of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a tale. Needless to say, you know, it isn't a great spoiler to announce that Spider-Man isn't actually dead.
Yeah.
But at the end of the 5th part, which is Amazing Spider-Man 294, there is a groundbreaking moment in Spider-Man history. Something that's never been seen before, and I can only remember a couple of times since. So much so that back then, where I was working, I was known as the comic book fan, and people used to take the piss out of me. So, he's the one who read comics. And I can remember having this issue in my locker and taking it out and actually showing a couple of guys and saying, oh yeah, look at that, and showing them the last page, and they just went, fucking hell, this is a comic. And I was like, yeah, how's that for being a fucking kid and reading comics?
Yeah.
And it was the first time I actually had a comic that I could show people to say, yeah, this isn't for kids, alright, this is some serious shit going on. Also, part 4, which is Web of Spider-Man 32, is one of my all-time favourite comic covers. It is Spider-Man rising out of the grave, and it's him sort of coming up with the gravestone behind him, and him coming out of the mud, and it's raining, and it's a wonderfully iconic piece. And you can pick it up in trade paperback, hardcover. There's loads of ways out there, but in terms of Spider-Man's storytelling, it's up there near the top, if not at the top. In terms of just whether it's superhero or any kind, in terms of graphic storytelling, it's one of the finest examples you will find. The art is brilliant, the writing is breathtaking, and it is one of the finest examples out there. So Spider-Man Kraven's Last Hunt, if you haven't read it, please do.
Lovely stuff. Lovely. Well, from one web to another.
Oh,
you like that? Segue. My quick hit this week, sir, is a documentary called Deep Web.
Okay.
Deep Web is directed by a name that you're going to recognise and narrated by a name that you're going to recognise. And they are both most excellent dudes. Directed by Alex Winter.
Oh, yes.
And narrated by Keanu Reeves, who some of our listeners will know are better known as Bill and Ted.
They are.
Deep Web basically is a documentary that kind of chronicles the events surrounding the whole Silk Road, Bitcoin kind of furore that occurred. Do you know what Silk Road was?
No.
Silk Road was basically a website that was kind of set up, in the underground deep web, only accessible by an operating system called Tor. Now, on the Silk Road, you could buy anything on this marketplace. And I mean anything, any drug imaginable. Their whole kind of mythos was, we will sell anything under the sun as long as it is not going to be damaging to another human being, kind of thing. I mean, you could argue that the drugs they were selling, like pure heroin on there, so you could argue, well, that's pretty fucking damaging. But the reason they could get away with it was because it was in this pretty inaccessible area of the internet known as the deep web, or sometimes called the dark web. And the other reason they get away with it is because they weren't actually charging dollars or pound amounts. They were charging Bitcoin amounts, which I think now we've seen the decline of the Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin has gone altogether. I think it's.
Is it?
I think to my knowledge, it has. I could be wrong there. So mainly, it covers the trial of a chap called Ross Ulbricht, who was essentially one of the masterminds behind the Silk Road, as it were. And his handle was the Dread Pirate Roberts. Yeah, very cool. We like that. Again, for listeners who don't know Dread Pirate Roberts was the character from The Princess Bride.
Yes.
And much like The Princess Bride, in The Princess Bride itself, the character played by Carrie Elwes explains that he's not the first Dread Pirate Roberts. He merely took on the handle from his predecessor. And that's kind of the same deal with the Silk Road. They don't know how many of these Dread Pirate Roberts there have been. But it's just unfortunate that this young chap, this Ross Ulbricht chap, was the one who got nicked for it. He is now doing life in prison. He will probably never get out. The documentary is equal parts interesting, equal parts scary, and equal parts just.
Was that simply because of the effective drugs trafficking, or was there anything else that?
Yeah, pretty much. The FBI just finally decided that you're not going to get away with this. You can't just start an underground drugs ring and simply do whatever you like. You can't.
But
do that.
Was it mainly drugs, or what?
No, I mean you could buy pretty much anything on the Silk Road, but for want of better words, much like the mythical Hydra beasts and things like that, you cut off one head and another one comes back. So as soon as they close down the Silk Road, another website would pop up, and then another, and then another, and then another. So the FBI were constantly trying to shut these sites down. It's a brilliantly put together documentary, and I must admit, I love hearing Keanu Reeves narrate things. I think he's got such a relaxing voice. He really has got a very relaxing voice. And it also points out to you, just quite how seedy and awful some of the things are that you can access via the deep web. Let's put it this way, if you wanted to find a picture of a cat with its paws cut off, you'd go to the deep web. Things like I know it's disgusting, but I'm just giving you an idea of just how odd this thing is. I mean, I've got a friend of mine whose name I won't mention, but I know he has looked into this operating system Tor, and he has had a little hunt around on the deep web. If you wanted to hire a hitman, they're on there. If you want someone killed, you could do it via this web, via these portals. If you want to buy weaponry, if you want to buy drugs, if you want just anything imaginable is accessible via the deep web. It's a very, very dangerous, nasty, horrible place, and I would suggest that none of our listeners download the operating system and go there. I certainly haven't, and I certainly won't be. But do watch this documentary because it's very, very interesting, and it does kind of throw up a few interesting parallels with some other documentaries I've seen regarding miscarriage of justice and, you know, whether or not this chap really should be doing life for what he's doing, because effectively all he was trying to do, I think, is kind of allow people a voice and allow people to make their own decisions, which kind of are taken away from us a little bit in this day and age, aren't they? Where we are kind of pigeonholed and shoehorned into corners and told, you can do this, but you can't do this. You can do this, but you can't do this. Here, via the deep web and via Silk Road, you could do anything. You could talk about anything. It wasn't just a marketplace. It was a place for people to discuss and people to have ideas, you know, albeit about films, about music, about politics, about religion. It was a place for people to express themselves. And, you know, when the FBI shut it down, they not only, you know, that...
But why would you not just do that on the normal web? Why would you feel the need to go to such an underground place?
No censorship.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, we still have web forums, obviously, that you can go and chat on, but there is still a massive amount of censorship on these places. It's like, for instance... you know, there are websites such as the Glassdoor, which is a website that you can go on and you can review a company that you might have worked for, or you can review an interview that you might have had or held for a job interview or things like that. If you put a negative review up on there, they're all looked at, and you know, there's nothing to stop that employer going on there and saying, right, well, I'm taking that down. So that's the kind of censorship. Whereas in the deep web and in the Silk Road and places like that censorship didn't exist. It was, you could say whatever you wanted, you could be whatever you wanted, and you could kind of, you know, express any opinion that you wanted. And I think the FBI basically, you know, although they were doing a good job by shutting down the portion of it that would allow you to buy fucking black tar heroin and you know, and opium and things like that, just, you know, things were made so readily available that a 12-year-old could access this and effectively buy, you know, MDMA and things like that, which is not good. You know, even as someone who's
Isn't it?
Well, you know, it's not good for a 12-year-old. Let's put it that way. I mean, you know, I've dabbled in drugs in the past, and you know, I still will continue to dabble if something does come my way. But it's not something that I do on a daily or hourly or weekly basis, sort of thing. Just the fact of the matter is, it's wrong of the FBI to take away people's voices. It's wrong of the man to step on, you know, everyone else and say, you can't say this here. We should have a place where we can be free and we can.
Yeah, but why not have? And again, you know, I'm sort of playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You know, surely the crime wasn't freedom of speech. The crime was peddling illegal substances.
Yeah, no, it is.
So therefore, you say this is the FBI stepping down at it. No, this is the FBI stopping the trading and purchase of illegal substances.
Yes, indeed.
Why not have a site where people can go on and express their opinions, which is completely legal, and therefore the FBI wouldn't touch it, and have something else, but to mix it all together, to have it all in one big melting pot. You can't claim that somebody's preventing your freedom of speech, where actually they are shutting you down because
you're dealing in illegal narcotics.
Because you've got illegal activities.
That was going to be the end of my point, really, basically.
Oh,
but no, you've put it very, very eloquently. By them shutting down websites like this because of the illegal activity that is going on, they're silencing another part of it which didn't need to be silenced.
Therefore, those people who don't want to be silent should have kept themselves separately anyway.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there's many more, you know, labyrinthian twists and turns to this story, but the documentary itself is really, really good. It's very enjoyable, and it's a real kind of... It was an education for me, and you could tell by the way I'm talking about it that I've still got a lot to learn about it. And I think it is something, anyone who uses a computer, anyone who uses a mobile phone, anyone who uses anything that is kind of linked into any sort of central server or database, this documentary will make you think about how you share your data and how you, you know, what you click on.
The latest thing has been, you know, the Ashley Madison business.
There you go.
Which is sort of where the dark web suddenly hit the news again, because that was where the data was first stored, and then it was suddenly made freely available on the normal net. But
exactly.
Yeah, this is a sort of thing, you know, you need to be so careful.
As I say, the fact of the matter is, this documentary...
Thank God I used a false name.
Yeah. Brian Graham, you put
Okay, it wasn't a great false name.
No. What a prick. But yes, this documentary, ironically, you can access it via the internet, probably on a site like Putlocker or somewhere like that. Sure. It is worth a watch. It can be a little bit disturbing and a little bit scary, but I mean, as long as, hey kids, you're all careful on the internet.
Isn't life?
Yeah, indeed, life is a scary place. But yeah, as long as you're all careful on the internet, then no one's going to get in trouble, I'm sure. But do watch this, because it is a good watch. It's a good documentary.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And now we shall move on to this week's main topic.
When they got the ball, you know they won't drop it. The Geek-Minded fools discuss the main topic.
Right, for this week's main topic, we are finally going to do a follow-up to episode 11, in which we looked back over our thoughts, opinions and reminiscences of Star Wars A New Hope.
We did.
So it's been a long time coming, but now we're going to look at the second of the original trilogy, The Empire Strikes Back, and obviously to a great many people, their favourite, the best of the three, the best of all of them.
Definitely my favourite.
Absolutely. Before we start, though,
yeah,
I do have something I'd like to suddenly occurred to me, and I'd just like your opinion of it. And that is...
You're not going to take your trousers off again?
The new Star Wars film.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Due out in December.
December the 17th, I think, isn't it?
Yes. Obviously, Star Wars has been bought out by Disney.
Yeah.
Iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, and every time I hear the 20th Century Fox fanfare, immediately after it, I expect to hear Star Wars.
Indeed, it's very hard to hear a Fox film without waiting for...
Yep.
Check this out.
Fuck off!
This is the Walt Disney intro. Obviously, it's not a fucking Fox film anymore.
Oh God, you know what?
It is a Walt Disney film.
That never, ever entered into my mind. Now that is a small...
It's not the same, is it? It's not the same!
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
How can you have a Star Wars film without the 20th Century Fox intro?
For those,
How the fuck
obviously,
can we have a Star Wars film with that? I mean, and I'm used to that because I have two young kids.
Yeah.
They love Disney films. I hear that about 3 times a week, so I'm used to it. But it doesn't go in front of the Star Wars theme.
Do you know what?
And it only just occurred to me. I suddenly thought, oh shit, are they really good? What else can they do? It's a fucking Disney film.
Yeah, that's blown me away. To the point, obviously, you can't see me, listeners, but I've taken my glasses off and I have kind of got fingers massaging my temples because that has genuinely fucking blown me away. You can't have a Star Wars film without the 20th Century Fox fanfare.
But they can't have it. It's not a Fox film.
Do you know what I'm going to do when we see it at the cinema?
20th Century or Fox, whatever they're called now, Fox Pictures, have nothing to do with Star Wars.
When we see it at the cinema, I'm going to go in with a comb and paper and do that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to painstakingly recreate the Fox fanfare.
Weird. But
That's
anyway,
a shame, isn't it?
A complete aside, but something that just occurred to me. And I thought,
I don't really want to do the episode now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you know what? Fuck them.
If I've ruined it for you.
But at least we know that The Empire Strikes Back was
the finest Star Wars film.
And did have the Fox
Indeed.
fanfare,
It
indeed.
did.
So
1980.
Yeah, I was
came out.
4.
You were 4.
You were 44.
Thank you. I was 11 when it came out. I was an 11-year-old wee lad, which of course meant that was sort of Star Wars came out. I think I'd just turned 9 because we didn't get it till 78, did we? Early 78, and therefore, you know, I was 2 and a bit years down the line, and therefore I can remember suddenly all the toys, all the vehicles and everything. I just wanted a lot. Star Wars had already turned me on. It already switched on my collecting bug.
Yeah.
And therefore, for everything Empire, it just went through the roof. And that's when Star Wars definitely started to take over my life.
I think it's the most grown up of the Star Wars films.
Absolutely. It has
and I think
far more adult themes. Yes.
Yeah, it definitely does give you a really good idea about, for want of better words, it gives you a good sense of what life would be
Absolutely.
like.
Welcome to real life,
yeah.
where shit really does happen. I mean, one thing I hate it when people say, "Oh, I like the Empire Strikes Back because they lose." And it's like, it's far more sophisticated than that. It's far, the nuances of the whole thing are far greater than summing it up by "they lose."
Yeah.
It's so multi-layered, and you obviously have the Vader reveal at the end.
Yeah.
But throughout this is what happens when shit really hits the fan. But from the beginning, when the Imperials come after the rebel base on Hoth. And even sort of Luke getting taken down by the Wampa, and
him hallucinating, and
this is it, and it's very adult. It's where Star Wars was very much a triumphant film. Everything was and this was the complete antithesis of that. This was the shit. Everything is about to go to hell in a handbasket, and it really does.
That's right. We also get to witness Luke kind of on his journey to become a Jedi in this one, don't we? You see him going through his Jedi training with Master Yoda. Yeah. Which I think are some of the best scenes in the film, really.
Yeah. Probably one of my favourite shots of the whole saga. And one thing I was really pleased that funny enough, it wasn't until the Return of the Jedi comics, but of course in the American comics they always had a drawn cover, whereas on the English ones, more often than not, we had a photo cover. It was Star Wars Weekly, and then Empire Strikes Back Weekly, and then Return of the Jedi Weekly, and it wasn't until about issue 60 odd of Return of the Jedi Weekly that they had this image on the front cover, and I remember picking it up and just going, "Oh wow, this is amazing." And it's when Yoda levitates the X-Wing at the swamp, and it starts to come towards them. You've got sort of Luke and Yoda behind them, and the X-Wing is coming away from you towards them. Such a beautiful, I'm ashamed to say I don't know who the cinematographer was on that, but whoever set that shot up, absolutely fucking amazing. Hat well and truly off.
I can tell you that was by a guy called Peter Sushitsky.
There you go. But just amazing.
Directed by Irvin Kershner as well, who I think just did such a sterling job on it. Because, I do love the original trilogy. And I do love Jedi, regardless of what anyone says about it having a bunch of Muppets in it.
You can't fault it as a trilogy, not only in terms of the story that it tells, but what it meant to us all. The time of our lives that it was going on. Yeah.
It's a beautifully put together film. It really is, and it answers a lot of questions, as to where Han got the Falcon from and things like that, and. Obviously, as you say, the big reveal at the end regarding Darth and Luke, which guys, there's going to be spoilers in this, but if you don't know that basically Darth is Luke's father, then quite frankly, get back under your fucking rock.
Yes. But and of course you had the Han and Leia love story as well. Something that was very slightly teased out in Star Wars. In the cockpit of the Falcon, but. I think the assumption was always going to be that Luke and Leia were going to be the couple, and of course that's hinted at precisely when she kisses him after he's who's scruffy looking.
One of the greatest classes of all time. Nothing but a scruffy looking nerf herder.
Yeah, but the scene when they I don't know if they kiss or almost kiss, but of course they're interrupted by 3PO, and there's that great scene where she's sort of realising that she's letting him get to her. She sort of punches the wall on the Falcon, and I thought it's just lovely little moments like that. Of course, introduction of Boba Fett, introduction of Lando, introduction of Yoda, and of course introduction of the Imperial March.
Yeah,
which is a great piece so of much music there that's just like Yeah,
I mean, as films go for for firsts, it had a lot of firsts. It was, as you say, first time we get a proper introduction to Boba Fett, who, for the amount of screen time he gets throughout that trilogy, it still amazes me that he has got the phenomenal following that he's got as a character.
It is probably because he had so little screen time. Yeah. They didn't milk it, and therefore he maintained this very iconic status. People say, would James Dean have been the icon he was if he'd have gone on to make 50 films and made films into his 70s? Probably not. If you get a tiny little taster of something that you like, it makes it that much more special.
I mean, my love of Boba Fett, the character. I mean, I think
say James Dean.
Yeah, and James Dean as well. I mean, he's the only person who made smoking look cool. But my love of Boba Fett very much so, because I think I did you a little piece of artwork, didn't I?
You did.
A little black and white sketch of Boba Fett, which I'm still very proud of. I love that piece of artwork, I really do.
I thought you traced it beautifully.
I'll have you know, I didn't trace a bit of that. I don't do tracing. I'm not a fucking tracer. I'm an inker. And also as well, I don't know if we've spoken about this on the podcast before, but our day out to the Star Wars exhibition.
Yes.
Which was
a Naboo kind of day.
A Naboo kind of day, indeed.
Yes.
Which we're going to have to call an episode one day. A Naboo kind of day.
We should dedicate an episode to that, because it was absolutely hilarious.
But I mean, in the interest of just waxing lyrical a little bit about Boba Fett, it was a family asked. Did they ask you to take a photo of them with a stormtrooper?
Yes, there were stormtroopers. And okay, this is maybe not my proudest moment, but it seemed funny at the time. This man and this woman who had sort of, made us look normal in their geekiness. There were stormtroopers walking around, and this bloke said, "Oh, would you mind taking a photo of us with a stormtrooper?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And
this was in the days before digital cameras as well.
But this is it.
This would be a click and wind.
That's right. And so I said, "Yeah, sure." And they sort of lined up with a bit. And what I realised was that Scott was actually just over their shoulder, looking at the Boba Fett costume.
You say looking.
Okay, well, you were trying to steal something.
Yes, I was trying to steal the Wookiee
scalp. So I just, without them knowing, just zoomed past them and took a photo of you.
Mid-thieve. Oh, God, I was a little shit.
Terrible.
But yeah, that is my love of Boba Fett. And I feel that Boba Fett as a character wouldn't have minded had I have been able to detach the Wookiee scalp from his Mandalorian armour.
Indeed.
He's that kind of guy. He'd have been, I'm all right with that, I'm fine. But just for any employees of Lucasfilms, if they are listening, I didn't manage to get out with a Wookiee scalp. I didn't steal anything. So
you didn't,
no crime was committed, therefore I'm all right, okay? Yes. But I mean, you also mentioned that we get to meet Lando in this one, played by the fabulous Billy D. Williams, who is, for want of better words, just the smoothest mother flipper in the whole Star Wars universe.
Absolutely,
is he not? He's just so cool in it.
Up until that point, we thought Han was the charmer.
Yeah.
But Lando easily out-charms.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Solo, yes.
Very, very much so. That mother flipper is like Shaft. And he also explains to us that he lost the Millennium Falcon, didn't he, in a card game to Han, which I think is a lovely way to kind of humanise the characters a little bit. To know that they've been out boozing and gambling, and he's obviously been so drunk one night he's gone, I'll bet the keys to the ship on it, and Han's like, fucking right, having that.
But yeah, there's that great scene when they first meet Lando where he pretends to be pissed off with him and sort of comes out being all,
got a lot of nerve showing your face round here. I can't do a very good Billy D. Williams impersonation, unfortunately. But yeah, that is an awesome scene. Obviously, by this point as well, we've lost Obi-Wan, haven't we? So
yes.
This
although he is in it, but on a couple of occasions.
But this is where we kind of get the Force ghost. I think that kind of refers to them as, don't they? Who you do see them briefly at the end of Star Wars. Do you see them briefly? You do, don't you?
No.
Oh no, it's Jedi, isn't it? Of course it is. Yeah,
they all turn up.
So actually, Empire would be the first time we see them. We see Obi-Wan as a Force ghost, wouldn't we?
Well, he appears to Luke in Hoth when he manages to get away from the Wampa, and then obviously he's there talking to Yoda when they say, there is another
Sky.
No, that's in Jedi.
Is that Jedi as well?
Yes.
It fucking is, isn't it? It's just all melding into one, unfortunately. Which particular film is?
When 900 years old, you reach.
Luke is good. You or not?
What's that from? That's
Jedi.
That's Jedi as well, isn't it?
That's right, when he goes, he goes, look, I so old to your eyes.
Oh, what a fucking amazing character.
And when he goes, no. And he goes, I do. Yes, I do.
Oh, God, it's like having him in the room. It is just a lot bigger and less green. But I think we have to make massive mention to the fact that Empire, much like the rest of the trilogy, did sterling work with its physical effects. So, mainly Yoda, who was obviously puppeteered and voiced by Frank Oz. Mm-hmm. There's no comparison between that and the shitty fucking CGI bouncing ball fest that they put in, the prequels.
Yeah. Because, of course, initially in Phantom Menace, he was a puppet, and then they changed it. Yeah. They retrospectively CGI'd it, didn't they? And just made it look horrible and scary.
Absolutely appalling.
But, do you know what? In a funny way, and this is going to sound odd, I compare it to a James Bond film. Because James Bond, obviously, very iconic theme tune. Yeah. But On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you've got the great On Her Majesty's Secret Service theme. Now, of course, the theme tune that's sung in that is We Have All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong. Yeah. But you have the as they're doing the chase down on the skis. And there's a bit like that in Star Wars, in as much as you have obviously the Star Wars theme, the main theme. You have the Imperial March, which is so iconic and wonderful. But one of my favourite pieces of music, not only from that film but from the entire trilogy, is the asteroid field. When they're going through the asteroid field and you get the... Yeah. There's like a bit where they'll go, whoa! So these sort of near misses. And I love that piece of music. I think when I hear that, I immediately see the scene and I'm in that moment, even if I'm just hearing it on my iPod. It's just a wonderful piece of music, very of what it's trying to show and describe. And I love that piece of music.
Yeah, and it does. It does show how important, obviously, the score is to the film. I think that after the original Star Wars trilogy, obviously, a lot of films kind of took their lead from that and decided if it was going to be a big epic thing, it was going to need a huge epic score. I think very, very few films have ever surpassed it. I mean, with the exception of, I don't know, things like Jurassic Park, which is a very memorable score, obviously. This has to be, I think, as you said, right at the top of this piece, the Imperial March is just, it is petrifying, isn't it?
Brilliant, isn't it?
It just instills fear into me every time I hear it, and I know
nothing evokes menace like when it suddenly kicks in and goes. Just a fantastic piece of music.
It is awesome. So, did you see Empire at the cinema?
Yes, I went to the Woking ABC. I can remember my mum went shopping in Woking and dropped me and my friend Doug outside the cinema. We went in, we bought our own tickets, made us feel very grown up being 11 and buying our own tickets. And
sat next to a man with a rain mac on.
That's right,
you tickle his sick rabbit.
Yes, that's right. And it was sick halfway through.
Oh, bless it. Bless it. Because it had lost all its fur.
But yeah, Woking ABC.
I've just had a bit of sick in the back of my mouth. Oh dear.
But yeah, one thing that moved on from the first film, because the first film, as I think I touched on in the last one, we collected the cards, the trading cards, the bubblegum cards, as it were. Of course, this one moved on because you had your sticker album. Yeah. And I can remember the Empire Strikes Back sticker album, and I can remember eventually mine lost its cover, which is almost unthinkable now, the idea that could happen. But I can remember buying the Empire Strikes Back stickers. And another very exciting thing was, of course, I can remember... Again, this is back in the day when I was buying English comics, not American ones. So up until issue 117, you had Star Wars Weekly, and then suddenly at issue 118, it became Empire Strikes Back Weekly. And I can even remember the cover. It had Luke on. It was a drawing. It was Luke on the Tauntaun, and you had Darth Vader's head behind it. And I think you had sort of like the snowscape, and I think there was a snow speeder sort of going across at some point as well.
Why do I know that bit of artwork? Because I've seen that.
And you got a free set of transfers.
Yeah.
One of which was, which I think at the time were given away with Shreddies or something. But anyway, free little sort of sheet of transfers. One of which was, there was a Yoda one, and there was Luke sort of doing the handstand.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, and I can remember reading the adaptation and just being blown away because the art was by Al Williamson, and it was far more than Howard Chaykin's work in the first one. It was much finer art, and it actually started to look a lot more like the characters. And I can remember reading that and just being blown away and thinking, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever. And again, even as an 11-year-old, you got the feeling at the end, you were left unsatisfied because everything had gone wrong. Han was on his way with Boba Fett to Jabba. Luke had got his hand cut off and found out that Vader. It very much ended on a down note.
Yeah.
But as he's famously said, isn't that life? That's what's great, because life is a series of down notes, and that as an 11-year-old to walk away and just go, oh my god, But that was the great thing. It was like Star Wars was a film.
Yeah.
Empire and Jedi were like a 4-hour film split into 2 parts, whereby the middle left you totally fucking depressed. And it was only once you got to Jedi that suddenly everything came good, and the good guys won, which is
also as well, I think, bar none, probably the greatest, the greatest piece of improv of all time in any film.
Go on.
Is the Han's reply to Leia.
Oh yes, of course.
I love you.
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Brilliantly mocked in the Family Guy episode with the "I love you, fuck off." Absolutely awesome. But yeah, I genuinely do think that is one of the best bits of improv of all time. It's
probably one of the most famous pieces.
Yeah, just so simple, so very simple. I mean, we could obviously talk for hours about this film, I think. But I mean, for me, I'm as much as I love all the space battles in the original movie, and there's little space battles that you get in Jedi as well. Mm-hmm. I just think the battle on Hoth is just the most breathtaking thing that I've ever seen in a film of that time.
Of course, another thing it gave us was the AT-AT, wasn't it?
Which is exactly why.
Which pissed off parents the world over, because all of a sudden their kids wanted that. And I can remember crying for an AT-AT and being desperate to have an AT-AT.
Yeah, I did have an AT-AT.
Yeah.
And I was very, very proud of my AT-AT. And I believe my mother ended up car boot sailing it, and I was fucking heartbroken.
Really?
Yeah, that and the Millennium Falcon as well, and Slave One I had.
At least I sold all mine.
Yeah. Well, so did my mum, but only for about, I don't know, £5 for that.
Nothing,
what do you want for that? £5. I'll give you a bag for that and all, dear, yeah? Do you want a bag? Because my mother is obviously...
Terry Jones.
Yeah, Terry Jones from Monty Python. But yeah, no, I genuinely do think that Battle of Hoth is probably one of the most beautifully realised dogfights, if you like, and land battles as well, ever set to film. It's so cleverly done, and it's so brilliantly choreographed for what it is, for having such a bland white background with obviously, similarly coloured ships and land vehicles just mooching about. But obviously, the coup de grace is definitely Luke taking out the AT-AT, hasn't it, with his snowspeeder, wrapping the cable round it.
Around the legs, yeah.
Oh, it's just so beautifully done. And still looks brilliant, I think, today. Yeah. Still looks amazing today. Yes.
One thing that always bugged me about it, though, and still does to this day, is after the Hoth battle, when they're all evacuating.
Yeah.
And Luke is going to his X-Wing. And of course, you just had the scene where Han, Leia, and 3PO are running away and getting to the Falcon, and they sort of manage to get away, and Vader's almost gets them, and they take off. And then you've got Luke is walking to his X-Wing, and I think he starts talking to R2, and then suddenly the Falcon sort of shoots past from right to left across the screen, and sort of Luke watches him go, and his head isn't in line with it.
He's not actually watching his eyeliners wrong. Yeah.
He's looking slightly ahead of it. His head turns, and then the Falcon appears.
Okay,
and that's always bugged me.
You know what? I've never noticed that.
Yeah, he isn't actually looking at the Falcon. He's turning as if it's sort of flying about 2 seconds ahead of where it is.
So now, what is the big famous line, obviously, from Empire? Let's see if you get it right. What is the famous Darth to Luke line? The big spoiler line.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. And then he says, no, I am your father.
Well done, mate. Well done, because it's often misquoted as Luke, I am your father. I'm very impressed. You, sir, are a true Star Wars fan. Well done. Well done. There's obviously so much more we could say about this film. And we could, as I say, we could rattle on for hours upon hours upon hours. And there's probably so much that we've missed out by not saying. And I would like to think that any listeners who are Star Wars fans would point out things that we might have missed out, or maybe let us know about some of your memories of Empire Strikes Back. I mean, as we said at the top of this, I was 4 years old, so my memories of it are nil. But I do remember seeing it, and I remember it having a massive, massive effect on me. It is definitely one of the greatest.
Well, you'd have probably watched it on one of your dad's pirates, wouldn't you?
I did indeed. I still think, for my money, it is the greatest cliffhanger film of all time.
Oh yeah,
it is the best cliffhanger ever put to celluloid. And long may it reign as being one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time.
And like I say, that, I mean, of course, famously paid tribute to in the end of episode 6 of Spaced Series 2. That ending, the whole thing from Luke getting his new hand to them talking to Lando and Chewie in a Falcon, and just the Falcon taking off, and you sort of seeing them through the window, and then sort of pan around through the Armada and taking off. Just that whole bit, and the music, it's just, for a down ending, it's still sort of like, oh my god, this is incredible. This is, I mean, every beat of that film is just spectacular. Never tell me the odds.
Never tell me the odds, kid. God, that was a passable Harrison Ford there, even to my mind.
Apart from the kid, because he was talking to 3PO.
Oh, he was, wasn't he? Yeah, sorry about that. But seeing as we start, going back to that scene where they stood there at the viewing window at the end. Seeing as we started, this whole thing talking about the music, or the score, if you like. That little moment where the music kind of, it's also sad and lamenting, isn't it? And then it kicks into the Star Wars. I tell you what, even just talking about it gives me goosebumps.
It's fantastic.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Great. Right. Anything else you need to add, sir?
Only may the Force be with you. I know. Hang on a second.
You want to get that scene too, mate?
That's better. Sorry.
Wasn't that my phone call to you last
That was you. I've just recorded your phone call.
Just recorded me doing it.
You got to stop doing that. I mean, it wouldn't be so bad, but it's like 1 a.m. I'm mid-wank by then.
Oh dear. Anyway, on that bombshell, that's it for episode 25, our quarter of a century.
Hurrah!
So, from myself, Graham.
And myself, Scott.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.